Welcome, Meenakshi and Tiffany. I'm so glad to have you with me. I just saw all of the alerts go out on my phone that we are each live on our channels. That's the most fun when you're on Restream and you can go live on multiple channels. Let us know in the chat if you're here and you're joining us tonight. We have got a big comment from
Yes, my friend, where have you been?
Amazing.
Wow.
Savor the flavor of the awesomeness for sharing your delectable nuggets of wisdom, kindness, goodness, patience, encouragement, empathy, understanding, sincerity, perseverance, knowledge, honesty, love, hope, courage, tenacity, awesomeness. It's so many words, they won't even fit on the screen. So I'm going to continue them from the side. Caring, positivity, compassion, passion, inspiration, resilience, respect, appreciation, gratitude, enthusiasm, motivation, guidance, motivation with us tonight. Well, that's pretty amazing.
One of my favorite people.
And we've got our friend L2 with 3 of her favorites in front of her. Thank you. We've got Melody saying hi from Massachusetts. We've got Denise coming in and saying hi, y'all. Love that. And we've got Amber here saying, hey, welcome, everybody. So glad to have you. If you're joining us, keep the comments coming. Ask us questions. I will start by telling you why we're here tonight. And that is to start the conversation about burnout. It's one of my favorite conversations because it is a conversation that we don't have. We keep quiet about it because we think we're the only ones. And it looks like everybody around us is doing great and we're the only ones feeling this way. And meanwhile, everybody's feeling this way and looking at us and thinking, well, they're doing great. And so here we sit in burnout so much of the time, and we get embarrassed about it because we feel like it's failure, and it's not. And that's something that the 3 of us in our businesses talk about and care about a lot. And so tonight we're going to talk about burnout. We're going to talk about this conference that Meenakshi and Tiffany co-host, and that I am thrilled and honored to be a speaker at with these 2 in community, but in a fireside chat during the conference. But before we get into the details of the conference and why you should be there, because it's only $55 and it includes an amazing day of agenda items, I want to introduce my guests. So Meenakshi, you're in the top of my screen. So I'll start with you. Tell us who you are, tell us what you do, and tell us why you do that.
First of all, thank you so much, Lauren, for hosting us. And it's lovely to see everyone here. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us live. At least on the East Coast, it's late in the evening. So really appreciate you taking the time. My name is Meenakshi Iyer, and in my current professional avatar, I serve as the founder and principal of North Star Solutions and Services. We are a boutique future of work-oriented virtual coaching, training, and consulting practice. And we specialize in partnering with mid-career technology leaders, women in tech, and folks like myself who speak English as an additional language. And we partner with them in helping them chart their own journey, if you will, in people leadership and change leadership. So working in technology, it requires a very different set of skills compared to leading people and leading change. And I help my clients figure that out and figure out a leadership stance that's authentic to them and breaking free from all the should-bes. So that's what I focus on. And I also work with small to medium-sized companies in designing very bespoke, very specific, tailor-made learning experiences for their mid-career leaders.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Tiffany, introduce us to you.
Yes, thank you for having us here, Lauren. And thank you to all these wonderful, I'm just like having the chills with all these wonderful folks in the chat. Thank you all for being here. So I'm Tiffany Castagno. I am CEO and founder of Sapphire LLC. Sapphire is an acronym for cultivating the evolution of professional HR, because we have moved from rubber stamping, hiring, firing, what is going on here right now in my perimenopause brain? please listen. We're keeping it real because I'm not.
You come as you are with me.
Mask, right? We're not masking. But we really need to move from that piece of what HR was to where it's going. And so I do partner with small to medium businesses to really support them with building their cultures. That involves their infrastructures, their employer brands, supporting the employees within, because we know that we can't have good cultures without engaged employees who we want to retain. And so I'm based in Pittsburgh. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Shout out, go Green Bay. And definitely excited to have this conversation around burnout and why it's important to have that.
Amazing. And if you don't know me and you found me through this pairing or of the three of us, or if you just stumbled across our live some other way, I'm Lauren Lefkowitz. I'm an executive leadership coach, and I work with people to escape the trap of being fine. And fine is that place that we get to where we justify that things are fine when they're not actually fine. It's a self-soother and a way to say, it's fine. They pay me a lot of money. It's fine. They gave me a high job title, and it's actually not fine. And I want everybody to stop living in fine when fine is actually not fine. So let's talk a little bit about burnout, and without giving away all of the juiciness that's going to come in our fireside chat, I would love to know from you two, and Tiffany, let's start with you. Why is burnout an important topic to you? How does that even come up for you?
Oh gosh, how much time do we have? Well, I mean, for me personally, I just shared, I've been very vocal about my this latest journey of perimenopause that I've been on. I say latest, but it's been almost 7 years now. But I've really been impacted the last year and a half or two. And so part of it is me role modeling what good looks like, and role modeling that we don't have to take on all the things. So this is year 3 that I have been in practice here for myself. And what I learned is that a lot of things, you said fine is a trap. I went through this phase of pretending like it was all fine, soaking in all the information, doing the hustle culture, and telling myself that things were fine. This is what I was supposed to do. Also, in the work that I do in HR, what I'm learning is that I have people in my Zoom room or people I talk to when I'm out at client sites or in the community who are burning out at rapid rates. There are, a lot of things going on with decision fatigue. It is difficult out there. It is a very tough time to be a leader. I think the three of us and anyone else who's listening who is a leader can really relate to that. There are so many things coming at us at rapid speeds. We have social media flying all over the place and adding to our list of things that fatigue us. There's compassion fatigue. I'm an empath. And so the amount of space that I hold for people has been a lot. But we can't expect people to come into the workplace as a different person than they started before they came through our physical or virtual doors. And that is something that I want to see shift. And for people to be able to not have to come to work and mask. And because of the nature of the work I do in the people business, this is really, really important. And I want to be at the forefront of it. COVID has shifted a lot of that for us. And I'm trying to help shape perspectives. And Meenakshi and I both share this future of work, the balance of that and what it really looks like. How do we do our work differently? And so knowing that needs to change, I recognize that I have a huge opportunity to influence that within the people space. And so shout out to that, y'all. It's getting hotter in these fires in 23. You can hear me louder and louder. Let's go.
Yeah. I love that we're finally talking about it. And, Tiffany, I love that you talked about masking and unmasking, that we've spent so many years in our proper corporate behaviors and our hard pants and our long hours and our always giving and making it look easy, even though it was so hard. And we're not quiet anymore about it. And so there is this unmasking and there is this walking into a room and saying, oh, perimenopause has me looking for, I'm not sure what, I'm not sure why I came in here, and I'm not sure what I'm doing in this room, right? And we would never have talked about that 5 years ago, right? And so the fact that the three of us are sitting in this room in our comfiest clothes and willing to just come on here and talk like real people is so important. And I love that we have a comment here from Michaela. I love that you said that burnout doesn't equal failure. I don't even know which one of us said that, but we all feel that way, right? We all live in this world where burnout comes in and we feel like it's because we're doing it wrong. So the fact that the three of us and the two of you are talking about this so loudly and saying burnout's normal. It's not okay. It's not healthy, but it is normal. We're all living in it in some form or fashion. And Meenakshi, tell us a little bit. I know this sort of was your brainchild, this conference, and this is the fourth year, right?
This is the fourth year that Nutra is doing it. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about like how this came to be and why you care so much and so deeply about burnout.
Absolutely. So yeah, this is the fourth year of the conference. So this is the fourth annual Future of Work conference. And the first year I did this was 2020. I think I was I started my business in 2019, August of 2019, and I hosted my first conference in May of 2020, where we had just started shutting down all around the world, and it was a virtual conference on the future of work. And Tiffany knows this, and I think you two do. You also do. I was too scared to call it a conference because I didn't know whether I was going to do it again. Is it an annual thing? I don't know. So let's just call it a webinar series, and then that's what I did. And then I met Tiffany the same year, and then we talked and we hit it off, just like the three of us have. And I asked Tiffany if she would be interested in co-hosting it, because by then I was sure that I wanted to do it again the following year. And Tiffany jumped right on it. And ever since, we've been co-hosting it. So for the last, this is the third year that we're doing this together. And we also decided to, in response to what was happening in the world and how women in the workplace primarily were so disproportionately affected by everything that was happening in the world. And so we decided to tie it back to the International Women's Day event and make it an International Women's Day event. And since then, we've been doing that. And the first 2 years, we talked about the power of the female perspective. We talked about women shaping the pandemic pivot. And this year, when we started talking about this, it came up that, look, we've been through a lot. We've been put through the ringer, as we say here. And it's hard to find anyone that's not been affected by the pandemic, one way, shape, or form. And several of us, there's more of us that have been affected directly in the form of, some sort of loss of life, loss of livelihood, loss of connection. For example, I haven't been back to India since the pandemic, so I haven't seen my mom in 3.5 years. And that's the story for a lot of us. And as the world seems to be opening up and things are coming back to normal, whatever that is, there is a lot of both processed and unprocessed emotions left in us. And all of us are experiencing burnout to different degrees and in different spaces. And not to mention the ongoing layoffs in the tech space. And I come from the tech space, health tech to be specific. So seeing all those changes, like reading about people being let go after being with a company for 20 years with just an email, or noticing that they don't have access to the systems anymore. That's how they realized that they probably were among those affected. So there's so much happening. And we said, you know what, we need to talk about this, and we need to create the space where not only do we talk about it, but we also look at what are some accessible action items, actionable steps that are available to us, and how might we share that with the larger community. And for us, it's always been about inclusion and bias for action. That's amongst our core shared core values between Tiffany and I. And for me personally, burnout, I've experienced, I would say, at least on 3 different occasions throughout my 25-year career. And the last one is what caused me to pivot away from corporate life. And that's how I started North Star Solutions and Services. And I think for me, the inflection point was for the past more than 2 decades, I had designed my life around my work, and my job was in the center of it, and everything else had to fit in around it, be it time with family or travel to see family, whatever it may be. And I think I hit a point where I said, this is not working out. And when I quit with no plan, and that again, I always say that that's a point of privilege for me that I was able to do that. And I totally understand that if I were single or if I were the primary breadwinner in our household, I would still be at that job. And I know that. And that's my reality. But the point is, I think I got to a point where I could see very clearly that one, I'm dispensable, and two, and that did happen. When I quit, nothing shifted for the company. They just went on, right? And nobody's fault, but that's how these things are designed. And I think it took me about 3 months to really figure out what my identity is if I no longer had that job. And that's when I realized that almost 100% of my personal identity came from my job. And when that went away, there was this huge void that I didn't know how to fill. And it was that point that I said, okay, I really need to flip this around, and I need to figure out what is the kind of life that I want to lead. And yes, my job, my career allows me to live that life, but the first thing I need to figure out is what kind of life I want to live. And then figure out what kind of finances I need to support that life or lifestyle, whatever, actually both. And I think that was a journey that I've been on since then. And it took me about 6 months to really get to a point where I could say, okay, this is my starting point and this is where I'm going to go on from. So that's been my experience with the latest round of burnout that I experienced.
Yeah. Lauren says that she felt it too. It took her 3 months too. I am impressed at how fast both of you moved. I think I'm still in burnout. I'm much healthier than I was, and I work way fewer hours than I ever have in my adult life. But my burnout story, I had tears spring to my eyes when you told your story just now, because I also had that fear of what else am I other than my career. I'm really good at work. And one of the things I've learned more recently in the last couple of years is that there is a distinction between what you're good at and what you like to do, right? And what you're passionate about. I'm good at a lot of things. I can build you an amazing Excel spreadsheet with macros. I do not want to do that anymore, right? But I thought if I was good at it, then I should like it. And if I liked it and I was good at it, then that's what I should be doing. And I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. And I thought, well, who am I if I'm not working? When I go out with friends, I talk about work. When I go to networking events, they're about work. And I hit a point when I was working with my own coach on coming down from this 80 plus hour work week. I hit a point where I was working about 60 hours a week, and I didn't know what to do with this extra 20 hours. And my inclination was to go back to 80, because what if there wasn't anything else? What if there was nothing in the, what if I finally had time to open the closet door to see what was behind there, what the prize was, and it was empty and I was boring. And turns out I'm not, which is great. But I didn't know that. And I thought, like, what if all I am is my profession? Like, and then what? And then I don't work as much and I can't fill my time. And that's part of burnout is having that sort of single track of, if I don't do it exactly this way, I'm failing. So I have to figure out how to do it this way and not be burned out, which is sort of like an absurd way of thinking. But we normalize our ways of thinking because we have to justify why things are this way, whatever this way is.
Yeah.
And so now I'm almost 2 years out of the corporate world. And the way burnout shows up for me now is a little bit different in that I almost have a fear of working too much. That, like, the burnout lives inside of me. If I have a week, that's 60 hours because I have like a lot of really cool stuff going on. And then my brain is like, you're doing it again. You're a workaholic again. And then I have to sort of check in with myself. And I've got support around me like I've never had before, which is just amazing. But I'm always checking in with myself. And I'm still, I was working in burnout for like 20 years. I've only been out of burnout and finding balance for 3 or 4 years. And so it's a work in progress. And there are lots of triggers, I think, around us to help us go back into burnout if we're looking for it. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you heard in that marries with what you've experienced. Either one of you.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
All right. Well, before I forget, because it will happen. And I saw Melody talked about, I don't know if she was referring to this phase of life that I'm in, but yeah, sleep will go in this phase. Whew, thank goodness the last week I'm getting good sleep. But what I heard was, and I want to tie this to what I experienced that I didn't know that I was going through, is how you both talked about your identity and how it was so wrapped in this and how we felt really good. We're all very accomplished at what we were doing and we had this passion for it, or we, I guess, wouldn't be doing that. Now, of course, you have to make your livelihood. But for me, one of the things that I learned way too late was that some of that was wrapped in not finding joy in that. And I didn't realize that was contributing to my burnout, because it's not that I don't love HR or that I wasn't loving what I was doing on the whole. The problem was that there were things that I wasn't doing, or people who may have been around me, or people I was doing things with in my work who either weren't treating me a certain way or that weren't aligned or whatever you name the flavor. And I didn't identify soon enough that was bringing me down. And so it compounded on all the working of all the hours and trying to navigate all the things and balance all the things we have to do. And the other thing I heard, and I want to talk about, is around women and how those of us who identify as women are disparately impacted and continue to be. And it's all the things somebody talks about the shoulds in the comments, all the things we should be doing. And when you have that sitting here and hovering over you, it creates anxiety. It creates a lot of things. It creates imposter syndrome. I'm not doing enough. And so those are, I guess, the things that I heard that popped top of mind. So I'd love to hear what Meenakshi has to share as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of different things for me popped up. One was my experience here as an immigrant. And I think that, so I came to the US 15 years ago. So in my 30s, in fact, I just turned 30 when I first moved here. And it's a very different type of stress. And because you're starting from zero, none of what you did before matters. And so I had to start from scratch, right from, and I came here as an accompanying spouse. My husband was transferred and with his job, and that's how we moved here. So when you start, it's not like you're a college grad and you're starting as an adult midpoint. And again, I'm very aware of all the privilege that I had, and I still do. But nevertheless, starting off as an immigrant, that in itself adds a layer of stress. And I think it contributes to, and as you were sharing, what occurred to me was that's also a big part of the reason why my work was such a big part of my identity. And then this is true of most immigrant experience, is that when you move here, you don't have family, you don't have any of the social support structure, and you try to fill all of that with work. And then especially if you're on certain visa types, which is another challenge that you're seeing right now with all the layoffs in the tech space, is anyone that's on a work permit or the H-1B visa type, there is that subliminal level of stress all the time, because you're your legal right to stay in this country is tied to your job. And if you lose your job, it's a very different level of stress because you have X number of days within which you have to find new employment and things like that. I wasn't in that category. When I did get my work permit, I was able to work for anyone. So it was a general work permit that I got. But there is so many things that you have to think so many times before making a decision. And so, for example, I could not afford to go to India every year to meet my family. It's just simply out of the question. First of all, we have such generous leave policies here that did not let me make that trip every year, even if I wanted to or if I could afford it. That was one thing that came up for me. The second thing is burnout, and there is recent Gallup studies on burnout have reported this as well, is that burnout on at first sight may look like it's related to the number of hours we work, but it's really related to the working conditions for those long hours that you work. So it's the working conditions that affect you more deeply than the actual number of hours. And as you were talking about, you feel like you check in with yourself again, you're getting into that workaholic mode. And that's what came up for me. Like as a solopreneur, I think I work all the time. We're all one people teams. And so I work all the time. But to Tiffany's point, there's so much joy in what I do that I don't experience that always on level of stress. And I'm so much more creative in what I do now. So it's not, that also tells me that it's not just the number of hours, it's what I'm doing, what is the impact I'm creating. And so there is so much, not only joy, but also different aspects of my personality and what I can bring to the table that I'm discovering every single day, that this doesn't amount to burnout. And I think the other piece of it is that how honest am I with myself? And now I've learned to take those breaks and things of the nature. So the two things that came up for me was the whole immigrant experience, and also the other piece around it's always not the number of hours, but also the working conditions.
Yeah. And there's so much that goes into what working conditions are, and what your number of hours in the day are.
Yes.
Right. I'm a single person, so my 24 hours are different than a mom or a single mom or a married mom with kids, with, responsibilities, being sandwiched between kids and parents. There's a lot to consider. My situation was that I have chronic illness. And so my 24 hours weren't always waking and productive hours. And so burnout comes from your working conditions and your personal conditions.
Yes.
Right. As well as the hours. And it's like, what are you putting into or taking out of those hours? And what is that doing to you? And what are you battling? I see so often with clients, and I'm betting that you do too, that they're putting so much pressure on themselves to make it look like it's easy for them to get to work, be at work, stay at work. Meanwhile, they're calling around to their kids, friends' parents. Can you pick up my kid? He's sick at school. They're skipping t-ball games. They're calling in care for their parents when they'd prefer to do it themselves, or whatever the situation is, because they're making it look like they have the same 24 hours as everybody else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So who is this conference for? Meenakshi, tell us who this conference is for, and why our audience should come to it.
I started smiling because I was thinking, well, anyone that has ever experienced burnout, you better show up to this one. No,
right.
I think it's really meant for leaders at all levels, and I say that to include all of us as individuals. I think for me, as a personal agility and self-leadership coach, I always bring it back to what is that one thing that's in my sphere of influence that I can do. it's very easy, and I've been guilty of this. And I think whatever I do now as a coach, it's in coach training they say who you are is how you coach.
Mhm.
And that's I find that to be true for myself. And whatever I do today is in large part a consequence of my own personal experience and lived experience. So I think that um, I've been there, done that, where I sat around and waited for the system to change in order to accept me. And then I realized that that may not happen in my lifetime. So I needed to do something different. And so it's very important for me to ensure that I'm using my sense of agency and I'm doing everything that's possible, that is within my sphere of influence, to do or to create the realities that I need to sustain myself. And that's important to me. And so, from my perspective, the big reason why I even started this whole webinar series turned conference now is to build community. That's the other piece that's important to me, and I know that that's important to Tiffany as well, to have this sort of platform where we not just talk about things. So for both of us, it's important that uh, anybody that comes to our conference, it's personal to us. So we ensure that everybody is they get some value out of it, and for us, that personal connection is important as well. So for us, it's important that it's a small enough conference. It's a boutique event. Max of 125 150 people is what we would love to have. And the focus for us is that they learn something that's tangible and that's accessible. So for us, the big piece is to really demystify all these sort of out there looking concepts and break it down, make it accessible for people, so that when they walk away from the conference, it's not one of those other conferences where you just go listen to people talk and then you go back to your original lives. Then, we want to make an impact. So anyone that's in any sort of leadership role, including leading yourself, anyone that is dealing with caregiving responsibilities, whatever they may be, anyone that is part of distributed teams or remote teams, and HR professionals, and technology and business leaders. So those are the segments, if you will. So this is tied to International Women's Day, but it's open to everyone. It's not just for women, because one, burnout is experienced by everyone. Yes, women and several underserved groups are disproportionately affected, but this is for everyone. Because even if you personally are not experiencing burnout, this will be a great space for you to understand what it looks like for the people that you work with and you lead, so that you are in a better position to support them.
Yeah. What would you add to that, Tiffany?
What can I add? She did such a comprehensive job. I think, the calls to action are very important to us. And so making sure that's a part of it. And, within the title, we're talking about sustainability and embracing equity. And equity is a huge piece. So every year we have that folded right in, because we share these principles of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. And, alongside that, the communities we work in, live in, those who we love and who love us. And those things are very important. And so we want to be a space in these conferences where people can come together, and be able to hear from other people, gain new perspectives. We always learn from these opportunities as well. So as Meenakshi said, it's not us just imparting our infinite wisdom on folks, because one, we don't really like that anyway, but also it's really to get interactive, and we use various forms of that throughout. And this year is going to be so exciting. I'm so excited for all of the tangible things, even that we've baked into the different self-care, and we've practiced some of these ourselves, so we can vouch for those. We're very intentional about everything that we pour into this conference, which is everything we have and then some, because we believe in it that much and supporting our community. So the other piece I would add is that we're really excited this year that there are 4.25 professional development credits for human resources professionals. So that is exciting. We have some teams joining us as well. So we're very excited. And every year it just gets better. It truly, I know I said this in my post the other day that we're supposed to say certain things about how fun it is because we're the hosts, right? The hostesses. But it really is. And we hear this feedback. One of the things that as partners, Meenakshi and I are very intentional and proud of is that we do iterate. We take in that feedback and every year we make it better. We iterate as we're moving through the conference. I can't tell you how many texts we have, how many emails and phone calls and video calls that go through to really make sure that we have the biggest impact. And it's really, we have to come down from these conferences. Like we are on a natural just giver's high from these because it feels so good afterwards. And I'm looking forward to that again next week. I've been building up to it.
That's amazing. I love your description of a giver's high in contrast to compassion fatigue, right? Like what a great example of burnout versus joyful work, right? We talk about compassion fatigue. We talk about working conditions making us feel burned out. And here you two are working so hard to put this conference together and you're in giver's joy, right? Over it, which is so amazing. So I am not an organizer of this conference. I just hopped upon the train this year as a speaker, but I was with you two on Friday when you invited all of the speakers to come and do a live with you. So if you haven't caught that, go to Meenakshi or Tiffany's page and catch that. But what I love about this conference, what I'm really excited about is that combination of workshopping and a fireside chat and actual self-care happening at the conference itself. And so I think you should come to this if A, you've already recognized you're in burnout. If B, you're watching this live or the other one and you're thinking, oh, that sounds so cool, but I don't think I can make it. I don't think I can make the time for it. You need to make the time for it, right? Sick days are for mental health just as they are for physical health. So if you can get out of the office for the 11 to 4 Eastern period next Wednesday, or if you can watch it in your office while you're working and get out of your meetings for the day, it is worth your time to come and spend a day on yourself and with a whole bunch of other people who are going to make you feel normal for feeling like you're in burnout. Yeah.
So well,
and y'all, it's only $55. I've never seen such a reasonable price for a conference, and you're going to get so much more value out of that. If you have questions about this, send a private message to any of the three of us. If I can't answer the question, I'll either make something up or send you to one of these two. But I look forward to seeing a bunch of people from our networks there next Wednesday. And I am, again, so excited to be part of this event. Thank you both for spending time with me tonight and chatting with me. Thank you to everybody in the comments for coming and making the conversation that much richer. And we will see you at the conference.
Thank you.